The news is official. Carlo Acutis is a saint, the first saint of the millennial generation. A teenager in jeans and Nike sneakers who built websites and loved video games. Everyone calls him the cyber apostle of the Eucharist. And that's fine. But what if I told you that this definition, although correct, risks making us miss the point? What if I told you that the real revolution of Carlo was not using a computer, but something much deeper? Something the church recognized at record speed? Today, we won't just talk about the boy who loved the internet. We'll talk about 3 aspects of his life that few know, and that explain why his sainthood is an urgent message for all of us right now. And the first is a secret he confided on his deathbed. Let's go to a hospital, Monza, October 2006. Carlo is 15 years old with a diagnosis that leaves no way out. Acute myeloid leukemia, M3, the most aggressive form. He knows he is about to die. It is in that moment, in that room, that he confides a secret to his mother. Not the words of a child dreaming of the future, but the testament of a young man staring eternity in the face. His words, as his mother reported them, were more or less these: "Mom, if I get out of here alive, I'll become a priest." Stop and think. This is not ambition. It is a total offering. Faced with the possibility of still having a life, his only response was, "I give it all to you in the fullest way I know." His love for the Eucharist was so visceral that, if he could choose, he would choose to become the man whose hands touch and give Jesus every day. But Carlo did not leave that hospital alive. So what then? Was that promise lost? Did God not hear him? Here lies the first, shocking secret. Carlo didn't need to wait for the priesthood to live a priestly life. His final promise was not the beginning of a vocation, but the revelation of the life he had already lived. A priest offers sacrifice. Carlo offered every day of his life, his time, his savings. He didn't use his money for the latest video game, but to buy sleeping bags for the homeless he met on his way to Mass. A priest reconciles. Carlo stood up to defend disabled or bullied classmates, reconciling them with a community that had excluded them. A priest brings Christ to others. Carlo spoke of Jesus to Rajesh, a Hindu domestic worker in his home, in such a profound way that this man asked to be baptized. These are priestly actions. This is the baptized life taken seriously. Carlo shows us that every layperson in daily life can offer the world to God. His was not an interrupted vocation. It was the final revelation of the mission he had already accomplished. And this brings us to the second question everyone asks: why so fast? John Paul II was canonized in 9 years, considered a record. For Carlo, it will have been about 18 years since his death. How is that possible? Many think the Church accelerated the process to give young people a model. That view is incomplete and a bit cynical. The truth is simpler and far more powerful. The canonization process is not the Church creating a saint. It is the Church recognizing God's work. And for that, 2 fundamental elements are required: the fame of holiness and miracles. Carlo's fame of holiness was instant, global, and spontaneous. As soon as he died, people didn't say, "What a pity." They said, "A saint has died." The people who knew him, his friends, the poor he helped, the priests of his parish, were all absolutely certain that this boy was already in heaven. And the internet, the very tool he had used to evangelize, became the vehicle of his fame. His story went around the world in a few months, not thanks to a church marketing campaign, but through the digital word of mouth of everyone who encountered it. People began to pray to him, spontaneously. Then the miracles. They're not bonus points. They are God's seal. Heaven's signature saying, "Yes, this person is with me and intercedes for you." The first, for beatification, the unexplained healing of Matheus, a Brazilian boy with a fatal pancreatic malformation. He touched a relic of Carlo, and the next day he was completely healed. Doctors have no explanation. The second, very recent for canonization, the healing of Valeria, a Costa Rican student in Florence. A bicycle accident caused her a devastating brain injury. Doctors said her chances of survival were almost zero. Her mother flew to Assisi, prayed for hours at Carlo's tomb, and that same day the hospital called. Valeria had started to breathe on her own. A few days later, she moved her limbs and spoke. A total and unexplained recovery, see? It's not a bureaucratic shortcut. It's God's response to the faith of his people. Carlo's holiness was so evident, so radiant, that the formal process did nothing more than acknowledge it. And now we come to the third and perhaps most important secret, hidden in one of his most famous phrases. All people are born as originals, but many die as photocopies. We think being original means being weird, different at all costs, having a strange look or unconventional ideas. Carlo completely overturns that idea. What was Carlo's originality? Going to Mass every day? Spending hours in Eucharistic adoration? Praying the Rosary? These are not new things. They are practices the Church has proposed for 2,000 years. Defending the weak, loving the poor, that is the very heart of the gospel. Carlo Acutis' originality was not inventing something new. It was taking the eternal things seriously, completely. While many of us Christians live faith as an accessory to our life, an hour on Sunday, a distracted prayer before bed, for Carlo, faith was the operating system. It wasn't an app to open now and then. It was the software that made everything else run: school, friendships, computer work, illness. His originality was his absolute coherence. There wasn't an online Carlo and an offline Carlo. There wasn't a Carlo the student and a Carlo the believer. There was only Carlo, a boy totally and completely in love with Jesus. When he said, "Not me, but God," it wasn't a slogan. It was his life plan, emptying himself to make room for Christ. That is what made him an original, a unique and unrepeatable piece. Because when you make space for God, he brings out the best version of you, the version you were created to be. To die as photocopies means living by chasing trends, the opinions of others, the fear of being judged. To live as originals means having only one reference point: Jesus Christ. So, what does Carlo Acutis, the first saint who lived in our digital world, leave us? He leaves us a challenge. He doesn't ask us all to become computer geniuses. He doesn't ask us to die at 15. He asks, what is your life program? The phrase he had pinned in his room was, to always be united with Jesus. This is my life program. Simple, total. Carlo shows us that holiness is not for the strange, not for the superheroes of faith, not for another time. It is for you. It is for me. It is the possibility of making our ordinary life, with its computers, its problems, its friendships, a masterpiece. The real question his sainthood poses is not, how can I use social media better, but who am I putting at the center of my heart? Brothers and sisters, let us not settle for being photocopies. Let us ask Carlo Acutis to help us find our original and unique path to heaven, our personal highway.